to this podcast. Today I have a special guest. Isabel has been one of my mentors. I have had the pleasure of connecting with her for almost 2 years now when I found out about her offerings, and she's a brand oracle and intuitive guide. So I invited her on my podcast to share a bit about her creative journey and just being a woman of color. What she's doing is really making an impact in the community, especially for creatives and those who want to be healers, intuitive in this field and industry, because you don't see a lot of women and people of color, and also who are using their gifts and talents to make an impact and just build community in this collective. So thank you so much, Isabel, for coming on, and yeah, like, introduce yourself, and we'll get started.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. I'm Isabel Bagsik. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the founder of Unconventional Bliss. I am also a Filipina American on Taman Nation land or South Bay in the Bay Area, Northern California. And yes, I'm a brand oracle and visibility guide, weaving my background and education and industry experience in the design industry as a designer and creative director, and bringing in my passions for community organizing and culture and creativity, as well as ritual and ceremony, and bringing in my own cultural background and my interest in connecting with my own spirituality in these different ways. So, being able to fuse those together has been really exciting to see how that's been really resonating with the collective and just bridging the gaps that I was seeing in all these different worlds and pulling them together. So, it's been very cool. And at the heart of it, it's really how do we move through the world, bring our gifts with our fullest expression, with fun and pleasure and joy, and do so with integrity and care for the community and not just focus on our own individual wins as well. So, all of these things are at the forefront of my work, and I'm so excited and glad that we got to connect through some of those spaces. And now here you are in one of those manifestations of your vision. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I actually attended Isabel's meditation workshop where, you led us and the people who were joining the workshop through a really beautiful like session where we had to journal with our left hand, and you can share a bit later when we're talking about it. But I had this vision that came through, and I feel like a lot of the times we have the answers inside us, but we just need like a space or container where we can express and go deep within ourselves. So I think that was a really beautiful realization, because when I first signed up at the workshop, I didn't know what I was doing, right? Because in the day-to-day chaos, like, we really are doing so much and our nervous system can only handle so much. So I think you always create a space where we can like go deep and connect with our intuition, and I think that's what I've liked about you. And even the past offers that I've been inside, like the Sensual Selfies Club, right, the meditation workshops that I've been a part of, and even hearing how you present yourself online, and you're all about authenticity, and I can see that even as you grow, professionally,
Mhm.
personally. So yeah, I would love to know more about like how you got started, because I think a lot of the times, people are very rigid in their, career choices or what they want to do in life. And the creative career is something that's not conventional, in a way that people don't see themselves actually making a living as a healer, as a coach, as a creator. So how was that journey for you, and how has it been? Yeah.
Yeah. In a way, I'm kind of lucky that I really had a strong connection to my intuition even before I knew what that even meant, because I've been in various iterations of the work that I'm doing now, even as far back as, let's say, middle school, becoming a student leader of a community service club, high school being co-president of that similar club, at college, being a student leader all my time and ending my time in college as a co-president of one
Yeah.
of the Filipina American organizations for liberal arts and humanities sector. And it's just been creativity has been at the heart of my passions ever since I was a child. So all these different threads have just continued to evolve and guide me towards where I am now. And what I'm doing now may very well be evolving into something totally different that I have no concept or grasp of yet. And so being able to follow that intuition despite parents and elders around me saying otherwise and telling you to do differently and follow the more traditional pathways of careers
Mhm.
was scary because I didn't have a mentor. I'm the oldest child, so I didn't have
Mm.
someone in my generation to lean on, and no one really understood or who I could see could understand my desire for something different
Yeah.
outside of the traditional um, pathway of what I might study in university and so on. And so it really was this strong trust, this intuition can sometimes feel like this irrational trust in the unknown. And so that's what I had. I could not think of anything else that I could do for the rest of my life if I were to do it free, is kind of what I was thinking in high school, other than something creative. Like,
Mm.
even though I took advanced classes and sciences and math and history and so on, I was like, now that I'm at this point of deciding what I wanna do for the quote unquote "rest of my life," which really, college is really not the end all be all, but
Mhm.
that's what it feels like when you're 18
Yeah.
and having to choose. And so, yeah, something creative. And it led me to studying design and cinema and digital media. Just
Mhm.
looked out that I ended up studying what continues to still be useful for my work now.
Yeah.
And, um the the design part of it is what I continue to grow in the more traditional sense through work and through school. But the intuition part, it started pretty early in those moments of trust, that
Mm.
radical trust.
Yeah.
But it was during the start of the pandemic where we weren't going out all the time. I wasn't out facilitating events in the San Francisco Bay Area monthly like I was,
Mhm.
um, and just busy all the time. I was really stuck at home, really stuck with my thoughts, and there was a lot of healing different wounds and being with family and realizing there was this deeper desire to connect with my ancestors and pre-colonial um, spirituality. What did that look like in the Philippines? And getting curious deeper into my culture, which I've
Mhm.
always been curious about, but this time in the spiritual sense. And that opened up another wave of learning more about myself and connecting with my intuition and exploring meditation, oracle cards, and so
Yeah.
on. So this has been a long, lifelong journey, I'm sure, for many others. And it's been amazing to look back and see how pretty much a lot of the things that I was exploring still continues today because I was really adamant about pursuing things that lit me up, that
Mhm.
I was so curious about. And I had a lot of boldness and courage and kind of like, I didn't see anyone else. I didn't have as much comparison because I was pursuing certain projects that I wasn't seeing yet. Maybe I was sheltered, not sheltered, but maybe not as exposed to social media consumption as maybe these days. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like, "Oh, I could do this.
Yeah.
I could make my own magazine," which I did, and it became globally
Yeah.
recognized. I could host in-person events every month and have an amazing turnout in person, um, and co-create a retreat and have 15 people be so connected, become lifelong friends, and
Yeah.
have no idea, w of ho what budgeting looks like.
Yeah.
So so, it really was a lot of, conviction and just, like, there was no doubting. I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I need to do this. It
Yeah.
needs to happen." So, that conviction, comes and goes, but it really was this trust in the work that I wanted to see, especially in connecting community with these intersections of creativity and culture, connection, and social values as well.
Yeah. No. Oh my god, I have so much, 'cause your life experiences and like how you have weaved all your new learnings and your interests and values up until now to what you do. I think that's so beautiful. And what you said, right? Like you were convicted and you had that trust and leaned into those aspects of yourself when you first started. And there's like so many parts of it, right? Like being on social media, being a sole entrepreneur, be like doing it all yourself because you're quite literally, one woman show who's like handling all these logistics while also creating content and in like being tuned with your intuition and just listening to yourself. I think that part I really liked because I feel like a lot of us, including me, sometimes I want to outsource my decisions, right? Like if there's any trip, if there's any like side projects, or if there's anything that we want to do, we tend to seek validation from people close to us, but only we know like what is near and dear to our heart. So I really like how you said that you were convicted in yourself, and even in social media, right now, the algorithm, the everything, the world, social media world is really, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. So how have your rituals and like how you show up online, how you communicate with your community post COVID has looked like, and how, like, are there any rituals that you do to listen to yourself or to regulate your nervous system?
Yeah, and oftentimes I do have a morning ritual that I like to tend to, and sometimes it'll change up, but a
Mhm.
mix of that might look like a meditation or burning incense or using these ritual oils from different creators or journaling. And keeping it as simple as possible is sometimes just as powerful. Um, so those are my go-to. Sometimes I might pull an oracle card and reflect or journal on that, or maybe I'll do a somatic practice or just dancing
Mhm.
to a good song. Sometimes it can be just being your body. So those are some of the things that I tend to go to.
Yeah, thank you for sharing because I also see like, incense, and I love how your practice is like blends spirituality, intuition, but also, I know you are a Capricorn rising.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm Capricorn rising too. So I feel like, you are very ambitious and you build things like for yourself, for your inner child, but also for the collective community. So I feel like, I have so much admiration and love for your work, like everything you do. And I also wanted to ask you, like, how did you come up with the name Unconventional Bliss? And yeah, like, a little bit of like starting your business. And also, like, I know you mentioned something about like going after something that you're passionate about, right? And I really love to know more about how you're doing that. And there might be, obstacles that you run into, especially when what we used to love as a young, teenager or a middle schooler might look different now. But are there any instances that you're living the dreams of, young, like
Mm.
old school Isabel, or how has that blended into who you're evolving as a woman?
Yeah. So it's funny because Unconventional Bliss started off as a fashion blog right
Yeah,
at
right,
the end
right.
of high school and entering college. I was in the world of Tumblr and lookbook.new and reading these fashion blogs of select favorite bloggers, fashion bloggers religiously, like pretty
Mhm,
much every day in high school, reading. It was this mix of being fascinated by the outfits that they'd put together, whether thrifted or these luxury brands that I didn't know about, and writing such personal experiences about their lives or how they've been navigating their creativity in the fashion world
mhm,
or just everything in between, and it made me feel really connected to these creators, and I wanted to be able to, emulate that and express myself in that way, so that's what this platform started as a blog, and Instagram was just one part of that, aspect of where I could reshare some of the images and some of the writing, and over time, it kind of faded away after graduating college. I think I it kind of faded off maybe a couple years after graduating, and then my Instagram just evolved into this public personal space
mhm,
where I shared just everything in between. It really had no aim except sharing myself as a creative.
Yeah.
And when I was creating a magazine and doing a lot of Bay Area collaborations and events, and that was my platform, I just evolved into I am a creative leader in the Bay Area,
Mhm.
and these are my projects or the collaborations I'm doing. These are my perspectives. This is the meals I'm cooking on the weekend. This
Yeah.
is the makeup I like playing with. So it was not really a space of really monetizing. It
Mhm.
was just this space of expression and connection and a place for collaboration.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just was this space I didn't know what to do with
Mhm.
until I ended up creating my own business.
Mhm.
And I then kept the space. I'm like, "Am I gonna change the name?" I've always been
Yeah.
curious, but I just stuck with it because I didn't wanna overthink it. And
Mhm.
over time, with many conversations and interviews like this, a lot of people resonate with the name,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "You know what? It still feels true in a different space in my life, and it's just something that I've been known for now for over a decade, so I think at least for now, I'll continue to stick with it, and that's something that I love to explore. What is unconventional? You even said that I was exploring, like, non-conventional pathways, and so it just feels true of exploring these different ways of approaching entrepreneurship and business and strategy and branding in these unconventional ways, and how do you find bliss through those practices, through those ways that is true to you. And
Mhm.
so in this space, that's what I continue to explore with the community. And I'm not sure if I remember your
Yeah.
other part 2 question, but that kind of explains the name and where it's grown and evolved into.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful because I think something that came to mind when you were sharing that was I remember the first email you sent when me and my friend had the other podcast, that was
Mhm.
where we shared our stories as an immigrant and then like kind of building a platform where other immigrants could resonate with how, it feels like living a life abroad, adjusting. And I was already into spirituality, creativity back then, but my friend we kind of like were chatting like you've been perfect for the podcast, but I think at that time she didn't feel it was aligned. So but I'm really glad I still connected with you and you were hosting workshops. So I feel like I was always following you and really seeing how much passion you had for the work that you're doing, and even like unconventional bliss, because I'm also you know gearing or veering towards like an unconventional, untraditional path. So I feel like I that's why I resonated with you. And yeah, like we have come a long way, and to have you on my podcast, I feel like I'm just having like a full circle moment. So I really appreciate you for sharing that. And also something that came to mind was I know you do a lot of brand oracle offers, and you do a lot of personal branding. So like I wanted to ask you, how has that journey been like for you, especially like in this era where, most of us are fearful of being seen. There's this aspect of being vulnerable online, like sharing too much or sharing too little, connecting with your community. So, how has that been for you?
Yeah. And that's such a big part around just navigating life in general, whether you have your own business or not. Being seen has been something that I've struggled with since I was young. I am an introvert, and it was difficult for me to even say hello to classmates in middle school and high school. Like, I had a lot of difficulty with my confidence or with being perceived and overthinking how I would be accepted. I think a lot of visibility wounds are will there still be a sense of belonging with the community that I want to connect with?
Mhm.
Or ancestral, where it might have been safer to assimilate and not rock the boat. So many different types of narratives that people might be experiencing that make it difficult to be more visible. And so those are just the tip of the iceberg of what I or some other clients have experienced. And how we might be able to tend to this is not just diving into strategy of, oh, you have to do this much
Yeah.
Instagram posts a month, or
Mm.
this is a brand photo shoot that will be so pretty and exciting. Like, can you have the inner work so that your visibility can be sustainable, so that you don't show up and then you ghost your audience, and then you show up years later and then you ghost them again? Where can you tend to the deeper stories or narratives that you might be holding on to
Mhm.
and face that and move through that, whether it is the personal solo work or in support with a mentor or in a cohort, a community, a class, and be able to work with that on a regular basis. Because even still, I'll have different layers that I myself will move through.
Mhm.
And obviously, of course, the teacher needs to go through those deeper initiations to be
Yeah.
able to teach from this trusted lived experience. And so I continue those layers as well. And some of those things, again, could be the inner work, could be after doing a lot of reflection and learning, can you then put it into implementation and application and get the embodied
Mhm.
practice so that it does feel safe in your body
Yeah.
to be visible, to share your voice, to be seen in the physical way and share your face. So there's so many aspects around how one might be able to practice this and feel safe to do so. But
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest foundation around that before you even get started on a strategy or creative direction or so on. Like, can you have this relentless conviction in trusting that you are safe, or you have the tools and support system to tend to your nervous system if you're rocked, and visibility might not feel as smooth sailing
Yeah.
as one day might be. So I think that is going to be the biggest thing that a lot of people can work on and lean back into at any stage of what they're doing, whether they want to be a podcaster or have their own business, be an artist, be a writer, be someone who is a leader or a member in their team in a company, so on.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, because I think as like creatives, whether you're a designer, artist, dancer, healer, I really think social media plays a big part in, like sharing your work and showcasing like what you're doing, what projects you're working through. But there's definitely this, like everything you shared, right? Like the views, the comments, the algorithm, but where can you truly be convicted in yourself? And that's a really beautiful aspect because I need to remind myself of that. But also, something that I wanted to ask you was, as a Filipina American, right? How have you like gotten back to your roots, and whether that be tying, learning more about your ancestors, learning more about your spiritual guides? Like, are there any advice, or like if there's someone who's listening to this who feels disconnected, who's either a second gen, third gen, or who feels disconnected to their culture, to their roots, how can they truly like take a step towards reconnecting with their culture, ancestors?
Yeah, for me, I have been really lucky for having the opportunity to visit the Philippines,
Hmm.
for a few times through my life, and most recently earlier this year with my
Yeah.
partner and my parents. And it's it's always so humbling and so insightful in deepening who I am and my own family and understanding each other on a deeper level when we can be in the same place, in the environments that they grew up and shaped them. And it continues to open my eyes on, oh, this is why they act this way, or this is why our people are this way, or so on. It is always helpful to also get out of your day-to-day routine if you are able to, and explore different culture that you are not in on a regular basis. And ever since I was young, and my parents and I immigrated when I was an infant to California,
Hmm.
I was raised hearing the language Tagalog all my life. I had a lot of um, the my parents' friends who ended up being like my second family, like my aunts and uncles and my cousins, essentially,
Mhm.
chosen family.
Yeah.
And I would hear the language all the time. We would still connect with our culture through food, through music, through games. At these family parties in America, we
Mhm.
would stick to that as much as we could because that was comforting for them. And a way for them to stay connected to their culture by finding this chosen family through work every year. And other ways that I've connected through my culture has been studying as well. So, what does it look like um, to understand the country historically? And a
Mhm.
lot of that deepened when I joined the Filipina American community in my university.
Mhm.
And there were spaces for these dialogues to understand these aspects of what happened through colonization, what happened through these different periods, how that affected this third culture, Filipina American, reconnecting through these different spaces, and what does it look like to hold this identity in a different country, being part of the diaspora.
Yeah.
And I've seen different classmates and friends who are far more removed than I am from the culture, not knowing the language at all, whereas I do understand because I was raised with it.
Mhm.
Um, or their because their parents or even grandparents or even more than that had
Mhm.
immigrated and are more far removed because they assimilated or they or don't have as much connection anymore to their hometowns. And so it was interesting to see how different people of my peers reconnected with their culture in these different ways. And a
Mhm.
lot of it was through learning history and having these dialogues to share these different experiences. And then spiritually, it was also learning um, historically through
Yeah.
books, through podcasts,
Yeah.
through different workshops that I would try to find online or in person in the Bay Area. I'm fortunate that there's a large Filipinx American community, creatives and spiritual in the Bay Area. And so
Yeah.
that was another thing as well of just using the internet and your new connections to guide you to the next thing. So, especially me as a Gemini sun, I love learning.
Yeah.
And I love learning everything about everything. And so, can I learn deeper about these parts of me and understand and find this deeper connection to understand who I am and be able to understand who my parents, who my ancestors are. So, it always, the more learning that I do around these parts of me, continues to help me understand who I am on a deeper level. And I think those who are trying to explore their culture too, can you find any historical um, artifacts or books, podcasts, even professors or leaders in the online space around these different cultural topics? There's so much information now, and can you just choose one and start from there? And then maybe if you have a friend or a peer who you can learn and practice with and have these conversations, can you go do that as well?
Oh my God, yeah, that is so beautiful because, I have myself like a lot of friends who are Filipinos, and who are first gen, second gen. So I hear this resonance of, when they are in conversations, how they have forgotten to like speak their mother tongue, so like the fact that you share these tips, I hope they'll be very helpful, to the people who are really interested in learning about their ancestry and really tying back to the roots, because like everything you said, right, like even like how to learn the language, but then there are some aspects where, because you migrated here when you were an infant, and I feel like most of the people who are either first culture, second culture, they have this dissonance in their identity, whether like if you're like not Filipina enough, or like you're too American, so I really hope that like doing the research, like connecting with your peers and asking your parents or grandparents, if you're fortunate to have that your lineage in your family, I think that can really help, because I think that's something that I've been myself feeling called to explore. And I did not have the chance to connect with both of my grandparents from my mom's or dad's side, because they passed away when I was really young. So it's just hard because my parents are in Nepal, and then they don't have like a physical collection, or like a document of how they look like, and
Mhm.
we're not talking about it. So I feel like a lot of us, like people like in this day and age, like Gen Z, millennials, are wanting to explore that connection as the world becomes more chaotic, or I don't know, there's so much going on. So I feel like the work that you do, even, and you tie social justice in it. And I'm also interested in learning how the world looked like, pre colonization. So I think it's just really interesting to hear from someone who's exploring that themselves. So thank you for sharing that. I know we're like in the 30-minute mark, but to wrap it all off, like, I really want to do a part two, because I really like, hearing about you,
Mm.
like what you shared today. So like a quick closing off question. I know this is going to be like some rapid fire question to you. I just wanted to you to share your viewers, like, is there any projects, offers that you're working on currently that you want them, like, that you want to invite them to?
Yeah, so excited and so grateful for this space. So thank you for having me. And for those who are curious and drawn to this conversation, please feel free to connect over with me at Unconventional Bliss on Instagram or Threads. And what I'm really excited about are a few things. Right now, I have this super fun and amazing membership called Sensual Selfies Content Club, where creatives and intuitive entrepreneurs can come together on a monthly basis for group live photo shoots together and hottie seat calls where we really get into implementing those new brand assets into your business and understand how you can expand your visibility through these fun photo shoots and expressing yourself in more um, practice around your creativity in a community setting.
Mhm.
So that's a space where we actually just kicked off our first photo shoot together, and everyone had so much fun. And they've been dropping their amazing selfies in our Telegram community space. So Sensual Selfies Content Club is open for folks. And I also am really honored and excited for my new offering called Ancestral Visibility, which is going to be this 6-month container for those who are ready to move from basic creation and basic entrepreneurship to becoming that future ancestor with a body of work, leaving a legacy. And what does that look like? Weaving in ancestral work with what that looks like in your branding and what that looks like in the body of work that you're leaving. That content creation is not just content, but this living archive of the movement that you're here to create through your unique gifts. And so I'm really excited to weave that together and see who the first few people jump in, create and do and uncover.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, those are 2 that I'm really excited for folks to jump into, and so if anyone has questions, again, you can find me at Unconventional Bliss.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing that. I had goosebumps when you were sharing about ancestral visibility. So I'm interested to learn more. And, yeah, anything about brand visibility or intuition, like, you guys can check her out on Unconventional Bliss. And yeah, thank you so much, Isabel, for doing this with me. I really loved learning about your creative journey, and how you have tied your lived experiences and continue to do so in your offerings. And I can't wait to witness your evolution. And like you said, the legacy that you're creating and the impact that you're making is something that I think this collective really needs. So I really appreciate you for sharing that in the world. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay!